see you guys in the dark.
This had happened around 2015 to 2016. I was living with somebody who worked an opposite schedule as me. He worked graveyard shift, and I worked during the day. So when I was getting up to get ready to leave for work, he was just coming home. On the nights during the week, I would obviously be home by myself. One night during the week, I was feeling especially lonely, and my favorite toy unfortunately had broke and died. So I decided to drive downtown to the 24-hour store to buy another one. The town I live in is a mid-sized suburban town filled with mostly residential areas. The main downtown area was essentially one small area on the way to the freeway. My apartment was about 10 minutes away. I pulled into the parking lot of the adult store. The parking lot was dark and had multiple entries all along that led to the bars and restaurants as well as the store. After parking my car, I walked towards the entrance to the store, which was on the street. To do so, I had to walk towards the driveway I came in to park. Upon walking to the entrance, I noticed a man was standing by himself smoking a cigarette. It was 1 a.m., and not normal, just to see only one person standing by themselves. I figured he was just one of the patrons from one of the bars on the block taking a cigarette break. As I walked past him, he said hi, to which I had responded with a quiet hi back, but didn't make eye contact with the man. Upon passing him, I had a better look at his appearance. He had a shaved head, wore a long white t-shirt, with shorts hanging past his knees. He had some sneakers on with some tube socks that covered his skin. This is not unusual to see in my town, but I was more concerned that he was sitting by himself and instantly took an interest in me as I walked past him. After passing him and continuing walking to the store, I see out of the corner of my eye the man proceeded to follow behind me. When I say follow, I don't mean he coincidentally was walking behind me. He immediately followed right behind me as soon as I passed him, making a point to maintain the same walking speed as me. I didn't know his intentions, but a man by himself that late at night is a recipe for trouble. As I looked down the dark and empty street, I weighed out my options of where to go. Initially, I thought, keep walking so he doesn't know that you happen to be going to the adult store. But since it was 1 a.m. and there was no one on the street, I thought that would be too dangerous. Then I thought, just go in one of the bars. But then I thought that would give him an easier introduction to approach me. So then I realized my best bet was to continue walking into the store where I know was well lit and people would see me. I proceeded to shop for what I came there for. The man had entered the store right behind me, but hung out at the front of the store so not to look like he was following me around. He wasn't even pretending to shop. He just sat at the front waiting for me. As I was shopping, I heard the man was making a psst noise, to which I had ignored. He wasn't getting the message. He continued making the psst sound as I continued to shop without noticing. Eventually, I walked up to the cashier, who was completely oblivious to what was going on. I tried to whisper to the cashier, "Do you know that man? Or does he even work here?" He asked me to repeat what I was saying. I had asked again, but still spoke in a quiet voice. Not understanding my attempt to be discreet, the cashier responded, "I can't hear you. Say it again, please." At this point, I felt my cover was blown. So in a more normal tone, I told the cashier the man on the front followed me from outside and won't leave me alone. I explained to him my car was parked in the lot behind the store, and I didn't feel comfortable going back to my car. The cashier said, "Okay." The cash wrap area was enclosed square and counter to maintain distance between the staff and the customer. The cashier walked in front by where the man was, and from behind the counter told the man to leave. He then came up and assured me that he told the man to go away, though the man did not. In fact, he continued to stay there, given that I didn't want him to follow me to my car. I stayed in the store and pretended like I was still shopping, even though I had already found what I came there for. I would occasionally glance to the front to see if the man was still there. He was. I kept going up to the cashier, explaining the man wasn't leaving. So we went back up to the front to talk to him. I heard the cashier say, "Enough already. Just leave the store." While he was doing this, I went to the far back end of the store to remain out of sight. By the time I circled back to the cashier, I noticed the man was no longer in the store. The cashier said that he repeatedly and more assertively told the man to leave. He said the man had claimed he didn't understand English. The cashier then said he pulled a baton he kept under the counter for protection. He held it over his head, and then asked the man, "Do you understand this?" To which the man had finally left the store. I made my purchase, but I was still worried about walking to my car. Even though I was parked in one of the first spaces when you came through the driveway, the cashier had pointed at a small TV behind him that had four angles of CCTV. He assured me the man was gone, and if I saw him, to come back into the store real quick. He also said he will see me when I walk to the car. Even though I would have felt more comfortable with him walking me to the car, I understood he was by himself, and he couldn't leave the store unattended with customers. After my purchase, I sped walk to my car. I always have my keys at the ready when I'm walking to my car, so I promptly pressed the unlock on my car remote, got into my car, placed my bag of purchases on the passenger seat, and proceeded to start my car. Once my car was turned on, I took off the e-brake, put the car in reverse, and while putting on my seatbelt, I looked in my side view mirror to back out. It was at this point that I saw the same man. He was full on speed walking to my driver's side door. I was driving a Honda Accord at the time, and that model automatically locks all the doors when you take the car out of park. As soon as I saw him, I hit the gas and violently pulled out of the parking space. I pulled out so fast, it startled him and stopped him dead in his tracks. He was now standing right next to my driver's side door as I continued to pull out. I gave him the most serious dead stare I could, because I know most predators play off the fear of their victims. The stare must have worked. As soon as he saw me pull out while staring at him, he turned his head back to the driveway entrance and proceeded to walk back where he was standing. He had a look of defeat on his face. My face, however, was overcome with relief. I pulled out of the parking lot and took myself back home. I felt a bit of shame being by myself going out so late. I did tell my boyfriend about the incident when he came home at 6 a.m. He also told me going out that late by myself wasn't the smartest thing. I'm no longer with that person, but still I live in the same town, though I never leave my home for anything past 9 o'clock anymore. While the town that I live in isn't the most dangerous, there still isn't enough crime that occurs here. It's also not considered the most safest. I've wanted to share this for a few months, and being that it's currently 4:30 in the morning and I can't sleep because I still have residual fear that someone is lurking in my apartment, I thought that I would hop on and share. I bartend and had an awful night at work. I have thicker skin and can handle myself relatively well, but I had been sexually harassed by a man at the bar I worked at earlier that night. After he was kicked out from the establishment, I decided to stick it out. I even called my dad and talked with him, and he agreed that as long as I was physically safe and emotionally ready to finish my shift, I should. So I did. My boyfriend had waited for me in our shared ground level apartment despite having worked a full day himself, because I was really upset about the comments made to me earlier in the night. Now, visualize. We were laying in bed. Our bed is in the middle of the bedroom against the back wall, and we were just laying with our heads where our feet normally were. The TV was no longer playing anything, but was still on the media screen. He had his hand on my back, and he had just fallen asleep. I could tell by his breathing. I was scrolling on my phone, finally allowing the discomfort of the night earlier events to fade. Then I had heard it, the faintest words, or word, hello. I froze. I felt the milliseconds within the second expand. In the matter of moments, my eyes had darted to the TV, to my boyfriend, to my phone, and I thought, or more like desperately hoped, that I had experienced some type of auditory hallucination, thinking maybe that I was more tired than I realized. Then I heard it once again, clear as day, coming from my hallway. Hello? It wasn't loud. It was low, quiet, checking to see if I was asleep. Suddenly I realized I could see a figure in the hallway. All at once I realized the voice was coming from a person who did not belong in my home. I have not forgotten that feeling. The time of the break-in was at 4 o'clock. It's currently 4:44 a.m. I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've fallen asleep before 4 a.m. since this incident, and or have woken up around 3 a.m. If I do fall asleep before 4, to make sure everything is locked. I can't sleep. Anyways, I scream with all of my heart. I screamed. My boyfriend jumps up, awake, confused, yelling. He threw open the door, and there was the intruder, standing and staring into the darkness. We didn't know what he wanted. We honestly still don't. My boyfriend pushed him and told him to leave. This was on a Saturday night. We lived a 25-minute walk from the bars, which may seem far, which isn't as far as you would think it is. We both assumed he had the wrong apartment, until he coldly and calmly said, I'll leave, turned around, not towards the front door, but towards the sliding patio door that has an enclosed patio. He slipped out so quietly, so quickly, and then he hopped my 4-foot fencing. We decided not to call the police because I was hysterical, confused, and in the moment convinced myself that they had the wrong apartment. It wasn't until we talked about the situation to more people that it was clear there was something more nefarious afoot. About 20 years ago, when I was 19, one of my first jobs was at an adult bookstore. Me and my best friend had gotten our first apartment together, and the Smut Hut was about 15 to 20-minute straight walk on a busy street. When we came out of our complex and turned left, there was a cemetery on the corner. There was a crosswalk at an intersection, then a Taco Bell on the opposite corner. Next to the Taco Bell was a gas station or a carryout. Then you walk over a small bridge. But it's dark at night and somewhat isolated for a very small stretch, and right after the bridge was a plaza that housed a strip club, a massage parlor, the porn shop I worked at, and a bar. So for the most part, it was fairly populated, busy area except for the small stretch of bridge. I didn't have my license, and I had worked third shift. My bestie would sometimes give me rides to and from work, but it was a Friday night, and she wanted to go out with friends, and I didn't have to be at work till nearly midnight, so I figured that I would walk. So I leave my apartment complex and walk past the cemetery to the crosswalk at the intersection. There was a guy leaning against the pole, smoking a cigarette, but there was a red light and the cross area for people to cross. I thought that it was weird that he didn't cross, but whatever. By the time I get to the actual corner, the light had turned green, so I lit up a cigarette and waited. He never said anything to me, so I kept him in the corner of my eye. The light had changed again, so I started crossing the street. I got about halfway across the street when he left the corner and also started to cross the street. I'd made note of this and continued walking. I passed the Taco Bell, and for the most part, he stayed a few feet behind me, but he had kept pace. When I was 14, I was followed from home from the bus stop, and because of this, I've always been hyper aware of people in their proximity to me. So I started to speed up. The guy behind me sped up as well. Now I'm coming up to the gas station, and after that is the bridge where it's dark and nowhere to run but forward. So I make a split decision to veer off the sidewalk, across the parking lot, and into the gas station. I practically ran the last few feet through the door. I went inside and ducked behind one of the rows of chips and cookies. Peered around the side. I saw the guy who was following me poke his head into the gas station and look around. He glanced around for a few seconds, and then he left. I called my coworker, who I would be relieving when I got to the store, and explained to him what had happened, and that I was too afraid to leave the gas station. He locked the store and came to pick me up. When he finally got there and picked me up, we walked out to the parking lot, and the guy wasn't there. Funny thing is, I never saw him again.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.